Usually when we think about being trapped, we picture a locked door, like heavy iron bars, a massive padlock.
Right, maybe a guard standing outside.
Yeah, a guard. And the instinctive human reaction to that imagery is to, well, start organizing a massive escape plan.
Of course.
You try to rally the other prisoners, or you spend years secretly digging a tunnel with a spoon, or you try to negotiate with the warden.
Because you're expending all this time and energy trying to change the environment around you.
Exactly.
And the underlying assumption there is that the environment is the thing holding us back. Like, we think the cell is what keeps us unfree.
Right. But imagine for a second that you walked up to that heavy iron door, turned the handle, and realized it was completely unlocked the entire time.
It's just open.
Yeah. All that digging, all that planning, the negotiating, totally unnecessary. You could have just turned the handle and walked out on your own.
Which is such a wild paradigm shift.
It really is. And that unlocked door is the central premise of Harry Browne's philosophy in his foundational text, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World.
A phenomenal book.
So we spend our lives complaining about taxes, our bosses, or society, thinking we are totally trapped.
Yeah.
When true personal freedom might actually be available to us right this second. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Because we are looking at a blueprint for achieving absolute personal freedom right now, without needing to change the world or a single person around you.
Yeah.
Most of us think freedom is an if-only situation.
Right. Like, if only my boss was better, or if only society understood me.
Exactly. But this framework argues you can be free today through what are called direct alternatives.
It is a radical reframing of how we interact with reality. I mean, think about it. We live in a world with billions of individuals, and every single one of those individuals is fundamentally seeking their own happiness. That is the baseline of human behavior. So the core argument here is that you forfeit your freedom the moment you fall into unquestioned assumptions, which the text categorizes as traps.
Traps, right.
And to really grasp this, we have to encourage you, the listener, to critically question absolutely everything you've been taught about duty, about society, and self-sacrifice.
Because those universally accepted truths, the things we just blindly accept as normal, are exactly what keep you sitting inside that unlocked cell.
Precisely.
So if the door's unlocked, why aren't we walking out? Well, before we can even look at how society or other people trap us, we have to look inward, right? We trap ourselves internally by totally misunderstanding our own nature.
Yeah, we really do.
And the very first snare we run into is the identity trap, which is essentially the belief that you should be someone else, or the assumption that other people should act like you.
It's a huge one.
I like to think of it as wearing someone else's prescription glasses just because the frames look incredibly smart on them.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Because it doesn't matter how great they look on your friend. If the prescription isn't yours, putting them on is only going to give you a massive, blinding headache.
Yeah. You literally cannot navigate the world clearly when you are trying to view it through an identity that isn't yours.
Exactly.
That glasses analogy is perfect because it highlights the physiological friction of ignoring your own nature. And what's fascinating here is how the identity trap bleeds directly into two other internal traps.
Okay, what are those?
The intellectual trap and the emotional trap. So let's look at the intellectual trap first. This happens when you try to censor your own emotions to fit a preconceived societal standard.
Oh, right, the classic I should be happy scenario.
Yes, exactly.
Let's say you've been told your whole life that the ultimate benchmark of success is a 4-bedroom house in suburbia, 2 kids, a steady corporate job. So you grind for years, you finally get those things, and you wake up feeling completely miserable.
It happens all the time.
The intellectual trap is standing in that beautiful kitchen, feeling awful, and telling yourself, but I should be happy, I checked all the boxes. You try to force your involuntary emotional response to align with an intellectual concept of what is quote-unquote right.
Precisely. You are overriding your own internal compass. You are denying your unique nature in favor of an average societal average.
Right.
But on the flip side of that coin, though, is the emotional trap, which is the danger of making massive long-term decisions when you are completely engulfed by a temporary feeling.
Like quitting your job in a blinding fit of rage because someone sent a passive-aggressive email.
Yes. Or marrying someone you met 3 weeks ago in Cabo because you're infatuated.
But hold on, if happiness is an emotion, and the premise here is that we absolutely shouldn't repress our emotions, how do we avoid the emotional trap?
That's the million-dollar question.
Aren't we just swinging wildly from one extreme to the other? I mean, if we just follow our feelings, aren't we just a chaotic mess?
That is the exact tension we have to navigate. To understand the mechanism here, we have to look at how human feeling actually works. Emotions are involuntary reactions.
Right, you can't control them.
You cannot snap your fingers and command yourself to feel happy or sad or in love. Because they are involuntary, they serve as vital, unfiltered signals. They are a literal compass telling you what genuinely brings you joy or discomfort.
Okay, so you have to listen to them.
You must listen to them to know what you actually want. However, and this is the trap part, at the absolute height of an intense emotion, your intellect is temporarily clouded.
Oh, because your brain is just flooded with neurochemicals.
Exactly. You literally cannot see the long-term consequences of your actions in that state.
So the emotion is the destination, but it's a terrible driver.
That is a brilliant way to put it, yes. So the rule to avoid the trap is brilliantly simple. You recognize the emotion, validate it entirely without guilt, but you wait until the mind clears to make the actual decision.
Okay, I see.
You use your intellect to design the long-term conditions that will allow your positive emotions to thrive.
I love that. The
Yeah.
intellect is the architect, and the emotion is the inhabitant.
Yeah.
You need both to build a home you actually want to live in.
Exactly.
Okay, so once we stop lying to ourselves about who we are and what we feel, we've essentially stepped outside of our own mental cell.
Yes, the internal work is done.
But the moment we do that, we run headfirst into our first external obstacle, which is the expectations of everybody else.
Which brings us to the ethics of self-interest, and specifically the morality trap and the unselfishness trap.
Let's tackle the morality trap first. This is the belief that you must obey a moral code created by someone else. Now, this isn't about, like, running around breaking laws.
Right, no, we're not talking about crime here.
It's about the everyday rules we accept without question. The idea is that personal morality shouldn't be about blind obedience to external rules handed down by your parents, your community, or your culture. Instead, your personal morality should simply be an attempt to consider the long-term consequences of your actions on your own happiness.
And that naturally flows into a concept that usually makes people very uncomfortable, which is the unselfishness trap.
Oh, yeah. This one is tough for a lot of people.
It is. It's the deeply ingrained belief that you must put the happiness of others ahead of your own. The core assertion here is actually quite bold. The premise is that everyone is fundamentally selfish, and that this isn't a bad thing.
Wait, really? Everyone?
Everyone, it's just human nature. Even the most dedicated, self-sacrificing philanthropist is acting to bring themselves the joy, satisfaction, and meaning of giving.
Oh, I see. So they get a psychological reward.
Exactly. They are still acting to increase their own feeling of well-being. If giving to others made them feel perfectly miserable, they wouldn't do it.
That makes a lot of sense. And to really drive that home, there's this brilliant analogy used in the text to dismantle the ideal of pure unselfishness.
The red rubber ball.
Yes. Okay, so imagine happiness is a physical object, like a red rubber ball. If everyone in the world is perfectly, flawlessly unselfish, what happens? Person A gets the ball, but they can't play with it because, well, that would be selfish.
Right, so they immediately pass it to person B.
But person B is also perfectly unselfish, so they can't enjoy it either. They pass it to person C, and on it goes. The ball is passed forever, like an infinite game of hot potato.
I mean, no one ever actually gets to stop and enjoy it.
Exactly. The entire concept of total unselfishness, when carried to its logical conclusion, defeats the very purpose of happiness.
It creates a world of martyrs with no beneficiaries.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I hear that, and my immediate reaction, I'm sure it's the listener's reaction too, is, okay, if we just throw out unselfishness and everyone is just looking out for number one, doesn't that mean we end up living in a world of ruthless jerks?
Is everyone taking advantage of each other?
Yeah, just hoarding the red rubber ball for themselves.
This raises a really important question. The fear of a ruthless world comes from a false dichotomy. We often assume there are only two choices in human interaction.
Which are?
Either you sacrifice yourself for others, or you force others to sacrifice themselves for you. It's a zero-sum game. But there is a vital third alternative. The free market of human relationships actually thrives on mutually beneficial exchanges.
Like buying a house.
Exactly like buying a house.
Think about the mechanics of buying a house. When you buy a house, you value the house more than the money in your bank account. The seller values your money more than their house.
Right.
So when you make the trade, you both walk away from the transaction feeling like you've won. Neither of you sacrificed. You both profited according to your own unique values.
The magic of that transaction is the double coincidence of wants. And this applies to friendships, to romantic partnerships, employment, everything. The point is that you don't need to force incompatible people to bend to your will, and you don't need to bend to theirs. You just have to navigate the world to find compatible people, people whose self-interest naturally aligns with your own.
You don't demand sacrifice. You look for alignment.
Precisely.
Okay, so if one-on-one mutually beneficial exchanges work so beautifully and nobody has to sacrifice, why do we constantly feel the need to form massive groups of thousands or millions of people to get things done?
It's a great point, and that assumption that bigger is automatically better leads us straight into the societal traps, what the text calls the illusion of the collective.
Okay, so this is the group trap, the government trap, and the utopia trap.
Right. Let's start with the group trap, because it completely flips conventional wisdom on its head.
We all know the phrase, "in union there is strength." We just assume that sharing effort and reward increases our power.
But if you look at the actual math of human behavior, groups often dilute your incentive. Well, if you are in a group of 100 people working toward a shared goal, and the reward is split evenly, your personal effort only accounts for 1% of the outcome.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. Whether you work yourself to the bone or sleep all day, the needle barely moves. Structurally, the group dynamic actually encourages you to do less. It's what psychologists call social loafing.
And understanding the structural flaws really the gateway to distinguishing between indirect alternatives and direct alternatives, which I think is arguably the most critical operational concept in this entire framework.
Absolutely. So an indirect alternative requires changing other people's minds to get what you want. Think about organizing a massive political campaign to lower your taxes.
Okay.
You have to convince thousands of voters, spend millions of dollars, debate politicians, navigate bureaucracy. Your success depends entirely on a massive group of people you cannot control.
Right. It's like trying to invent a weather control machine to stop the rain just because you don't want to get wet today.
That is a perfect analogy.
The amount of effort, coordination, and reliance on outside forces is just astronomical. You could spend your whole life building the machine and still get rained on.
Exactly. But a direct alternative requires only your own choice. It's just buying an umbrella or walking under an awning.
To use the tax example, a direct alternative is legally finding ways to minimize your tax burden within the existing rules, or simply moving to a jurisdiction with a tax structure you actually prefer.
You don't need anyone's permission but your own.
Right. You don't need to convince a single neighbor.
Which brings us to the philosophical view on the ultimate collective, the government trap. Now, to look at this impartially through the lens of this philosophy, the government trap is defined as the belief that governments perform socially useful functions that you are morally obligated to support.
Okay, and how does the text challenge that?
The framework argues that governments do not possess a magic wand to create resources out of thin air. Instead, they operate by taking resources from the free market, where people are making those mutually beneficial two-sided choices we talked about, and replacing them with choices dictated by a central authority.
Right.
In this view, government actions are fundamentally one-sided transactions. They are enforced by coercion or the threat of penalty. You are forced to pay for things you may not want, rather than engaging in two-sided transactions where both parties consent.
And because people believe so deeply in that collective power, they fall right into the utopia trap, or the burning issue trap.
Yes, this is a heavy one.
This is the crushing belief that you must fix society's endless issues, whether it's global pollution, geopolitical conflict, economic disparity, before you personally can truly be free.
But I have to push back hard here on behalf of the listener.
Go for it.
If we focus entirely on direct alternatives, buying umbrellas and opting out of these collective struggles, what about the massive systemic social issues? Doesn't opting out mean we're just letting the world burn?
Doesn't that make us complicit in the chaos?
It's a heavy question. And the philosophy synthesizes this tension with a rather sobering perspective on human history. The argument is that the world has always had issues, injustices, and conflicts. It is the nature of a planet with billions of competing interests, and it always will.
Yeah, that's true.
Your life, however, is incredibly finite. You only get so many years. Spending your one and only life carrying the crushing burden of the world's systemic problems on your shoulders is a voluntary choice to be unfree.
Because you can't actually fix it all.
Right. The assertion here is that trying to control millions of strangers is a futile endeavor that will only breed resentment and exhaustion. Instead, you should make your life the issue. You should protect yourself directly from the fallout of society's problems.
So if you see a societal fire raging, you don't need to spend 40 years trying to reinvent the global fire department. You can just move your house out of the forest.
Exactly. Focus on what you can actually control.
Okay, so we've zoomed way out to the macro world-saving level. Let's bring it back into our own living rooms. Because once we stop trying to fix the entire world, we still have to look at the immediate, everyday situations that are holding us hostage in our personal lives.
And that brings us to the traps of everyday life. The previous investment trap, the certainty trap, and the box trap.
Let's unpack the previous investment trap first. In behavioral economics, this is widely known as the sunk cost fallacy, right?
Right. It is the practice of letting time, money, or effort that you've spent in the past dictate your future choices.
Yeah.
A classic example is staying in a miserable 12-year marriage simply because you've already put 12 years into it.
Oh, human brains are so deeply wired for this. We hate losing things.
We really do.
It's exactly like sitting through a terrible, agonizingly boring movie just because you paid $15 for the ticket. Your brain says, I can't leave, I'll lose the $15.
But the $15 is gone either way.
Exactly. The universe does not care about your $15. By sitting there for 2 hours suffering, you aren't getting your money back. You're just throwing away 2 hours of your limited time on top of it.
That's spot on. The past is entirely irretrievable. The only rational question a free person asks is, how do I maximize my happiness from this exact moment forward?
Right.
Hanging on to a mistake just because it took a long time to make is the definition of the previous investment trap.
Okay, what about the certainty trap?
Well, closely related to this desire for security is the certainty trap. This is acting as if your information is absolute and ignoring the reality of risk. Our brains crave safety and predictability.
Sure.
But when you assume a situation is perfectly safe, you don't prepare for the alternative. And when the inevitable random chaos of the world happens, it leads to total emotional collapse.
Like someone crossing the street.
Yes. Think of a person crossing a busy street, assuming they are perfectly safe because they have the walk signal. They get hit by a distracted driver, and instead of accepting that risk is simply a built-in price of being alive, they'd spend years angrily blaming God, the universe, or the system.
Right, if you acknowledge the risk up front, you aren't shattered when things go sideways. You might be hurt, but you aren't existentially broken. You just pay the liability and keep moving.
Exactly.
And I think that leads perfectly into the final and maybe most practical concept we need to cover, the box trap.
This one is huge.
A box is any uncomfortable situation that restrains your freedom. It could be a dead-end job you hate, a toxic friendship you've outgrown, or just a mountain of debt.
Right. And the trap isn't that you're currently in the box. The trap is your underlying assumption that the cost of getting out of the box is too high to even consider.
What's truly fascinating about the box trap is a psychological mechanism keeping you stuck. Because most people let the fear of the exit price remain completely vague and hazy.
It's just a dark, scary cloud of what-ifs.
Yeah. And because the fear is ambiguous, it feels insurmountable. Your brain codes it as a mortal threat. So to combat this, there's a very specific 4-step mental exercise to escape any box.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Walk us through the 4 steps.
Okay, step 1. Identify the specific discomfort. Don't just say, my job sucks. Pinpoint exactly what is draining you. Is it the commute? The micromanaging boss?
Get specific. Got it. What's step 2?
Step 2 is to imagine your life if that specific discomfort were completely gone. Visualize the space, the free time, the emotional bandwidth you would get back.
You have to actually see the reward to want to move.
Exactly. Now, step 3 is the critical one. Identify the exact price you have to pay to escape. Not a vague fear, the literal exact price.
Like, what will it actually cost me?
Right. Is it a difficult, tearful confrontation with a friend? Is it losing exactly $5,000? Is it facing a week of extreme embarrassment from your peers? You have to put a concrete price tag on it.
And once you have the price tag, what's step 4?
Step 4 is to mentally rehearse paying that price over and over again until the fear is gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you simulate the confrontation in your mind, you picture handing over the money, you neurologically desensitize yourself to the fear.
You just normalize it.
Right, you do it until the emotional sting fades into a simple transaction. And the overarching rule to remember here is profound. The sooner you pay the price, the cheaper it is.
Every single day you stay in the box, you are paying a daily interest rate of misery.
That is exactly it.
Every day you stay in the bad job or the bad relationship, you are paying a toll. That is such a powerful mathematical shift in perspective.
It really is.
Okay, let's zoom out and pull all of this together. So what does this all mean? The overarching lesson of this deep dive into Harry Browne's work is the absolute necessity of personal sovereignty. You are the final authority in your life, full stop.
Absolutely.
Freedom isn't something that is going to be granted to you by a new batch of politicians, or sweeping new laws, or a sudden miraculous shift in society's moral compass.
No, it's not. It is procured by recognizing your own power to make direct choices.
It's about buying your own umbrella, finding mutually beneficial relationships, and absolutely refusing to live by the expectations someone else cooked up for you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is about radical self-ownership. It requires dismantling the unquestioned assumptions, those internal and external traps that keep you sitting in an unlocked cell just waiting for the warden to change his mind.
I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second. Remind yourself today that you owe no one your life. Stop trying to change incompatible people. It's a waste of your finite time.
The world is massive. The math is undeniably on your side.
It is. Your specific market of compatible friends, compatible lovers, and compatible employers is out there waiting. You don't need to change the people around you. You just need to go find the ones who already want exactly what you have to offer.
This raises an important question, and it's the final provocative thought I want to leave you with to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and completely, utterly dropped the burden of trying to live up to the expectations of your family, your peers, or society. Just set it down on the nightstand. What is the very first direct alternative choice you would make before you even ate breakfast?
Man,
Yeah,
that is the handle on the heavy iron door.
yeah.
The cell was never locked. We just spent so much time scraping at the mortar, trying to dig a tunnel, that we never bothered to check if we could just push the door open and walk out into the sun.
You don't need to tear down the prison.
You just need to leave.